Now that we've practiced drawing cross contour lines on geometric forms and organic forms, we're going to try creating cross contour lines three-dimensionally. When we work with a material and we want to show that something has form, we need to think about what the cross contour lines are doing. And working with wire is going to help us do that today. So you need to know a couple things to begin with. First of all, whenever you work with wire, you need to wear goggles. Okay? The goggles are going to protect your eyes. This is a requirement. Anytime you're working with the wire, you need to have goggles on. You can adjust them with these little straps here, make sure they fit snugly over your face. If you have glasses on, you still do need to wear the goggles. Some of the tools you will use here, I've got some different kinds of pliers. This pair right here is just for cutting. You can see it has a sharp edge, and that's for cutting the wire. This one here for grabbing the wire and forming it. It actually has a roundness right here, and it's smooth. So when you press down on this one, it won't make little teeth marks on the wire. So that's a nice feature of that one. And here's another pair, and it basically does the same thing. It just has a flat area here. So there's several different kinds of pliers, but just pay attention to the ones that cut versus bend. Okay. Other tools you might need, something to wrap the wire around, like a marker, or maybe a little container like this. What we're going to practice today is making a wire form in a sphere and a wire form of a cube. Okay. The wire we're going to be using is the thicker wire. Now we have thinner wire as well, and if you feel more comfortable with the thinner wire, just let me know and you can try the thinner wire. But we want to use this wire to show the cross contour line of the form so that we can see how it looks three-dimensionally. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'm going to show you one way, and you can choose how you'd like to approach it. If I think about this form here, the cross contour lines are actually going to be spiraling around the form. So if I were to draw it on here, this is what it might look like. And you can see as the lines go around, they're showing that this form is a sphere. And it keeps going all the way around the form until it would get to the bottom. But you can see what those cross contour lines might look like. So our challenge here is to do the same thing with the wire. So we'll start with our piece of wire. And we want to start in the beginning here, making a small curve, because that's where it's going to all begin. And if you slowly bend it around, the wire is going to start to take the form of the sphere. Now you can see I'm going very slowly and carefully here. I'm not making huge bends in this wire. You can always come back and tighten it up like this. You can also use your hands if you're more comfortable doing that. Now the tricky part here is that the sphere gets larger and then smaller. So at this point I'm going to have to start making those circles that I'm making come down tighter. Once I get to the end there, I'm going to need to cut it off. And I'll use these pliers pinch it off. And now I can work with that and gently bend and adjust where I need to. And then I've made a sphere out of wire. And if we look at our sphere with the contour lines drawn on there, you can see how that represents that form. Okay, your next challenge is the cube. But I want to show you a few things before we get to the cube. When you're bending the wire, you could see with the sphere, you could do it very gently to get a nice curve. With the cube, if you want a nice sharp bend, you can bend it on something, the edge of the table, a wooden block. So if I take this like this and I bend it over this wooden block, you can see how I get a nice right angle. So that's one little trick. Another little trick when you're working is if you want things to be curved, you can use something like this. And that'll give you a nice curve. So those are some tricks to getting nice round bends in the wire or a nice right angle. Now if you're working with the cube and you want to put your cross contour lines on the cube, if we want to spiral it the same way, it's going to be a little more challenging. Our cross contour lines on the cube generally go straight across. Now we can make them a little bit angled and we can do that spiral. So the lines are going to go across like this. And then they would go like this. You see how those would connect. Oops. So those would be cross contour lines on our cube. Now these lines also go in this direction, across the top and down. So the cube gets a little more complicated. There's several ways to approach the cube. You're probably going to need a little bit more wire with the cube. So I'm going to get another piece here. I'll cut this one off. And you could try starting the cube in the same way that we did the sphere. If you'd like to try that way, you can bend it around. Start at the top. And that would be one way to get a nice square like that. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to let you guys choose, but you could bend it like this and start to form your cube that way. You can see how you could get a cube shape like that. Okay. Now another thing you can do, here, let's bend this one down this way. We're going to come across. If we want to get those cross contour lines happening in there, we have to figure out how we're going to get those lines across. Now you can add another wire to it, or you can work with the same wire. So I'm going to just double up on some of these so that we can get our cube form. Now we're going to have, 2 layers of wire on some of these edges, and that's fine. And I'm doing this a little bit quicker than you probably will do it. Okay, so I just created a cube shape. Now if I wanted to show those cross contour lines, I could add in a little bit more wire going across to show that. So in here, what I'm going to do is make a little loop to attach it on there. Flat pliers might be better for that job. And then this cross contour line is going to come across here, and across here, across here. Now you can see the cube starts to get a lot more complicated. Now another way to approach the cube is to wrap it like I did with the sphere. So let's try that real quickly. We'll get another piece of wire. And we're going to start out with a little square in the center. And our square is going to get a little bigger as we go. You can see how it's mimicking the cube here. And if you want to, you can use the cube and literally wrap it around there so you can see how that's going. Okay, once it gets up to this spot here, it's going to have to do that same turning. You see how that shows the cross contour line. Now this cube is stuck in there. What do? You just kind of open it up a little bit, pull the cube out, and put it back together. So that's a way we can show our cube. And here's how we can show our sphere.